We conclude our story on the Decepticon warship. And by the way, this has been a magnificent run, hasn't it? Don't worry, he'll get his own, 3 to 5 part special as well. But we continue on the Decepticon warship where Dreadwing's, or Skyquake's team, excuse me, is finishing off their matches. Let's start off with Wheeljack versus Cyclonus, two swordsmen going back and forth, each technique complementing and countering the other, but only one can come out on top. Cyclonus does compliment Wheeljack, and states that it is no wonder how he was able to vanquish his comrade, Oil Slick, with Wheeljack simply stating for Cyclonus to shut up and keep fighting, showing that he doesn't care what the Khan thinks, that only one of them is going to walk away with this. So Cyclonus parries one of Wheeljack's blows, jumps back, transforms, and flies at him, trying to ram him with his needle-nosed tip of his jet form. However, Wheeljack simply rolls, or pretty much jumps and rolls right over him, and utilizing his cannon, shoots him in the thrusters. He then walks over to Cyclonus, telling him, I expected a little bit more diversity from a Khan, especially with one known for his extreme abilities in close quarters combat. To which Cyclonus says, just get on with it, and may you rot in the ops spark. And so, Wheeljack simply points his blaster at Cyclonus and ends him right then and there. We then pan over to Bumblebee versus Blackout, where Bumblebee is actually having a pretty easy time. Blackout can't use his, Blackout ability, and this is because he would destroy or pretty much just, shut down the warship. And because Blackout can't use it, he's not too smart or creative in combat without Striker. And this means Bumblebee is able to exploit him. Utilizing his better battle intelligence, his better agility, and his better combat reflexes, Bumblebee's able to target joint after joint around Blackout. So eventually, he has Blackout on the ropes. Blackout then loses an arm. Then he loses some functions of his legs. And as he simply looks up at Bumblebee, he keeps trying to move, trying to fight still. And he's like, no, must kill, must succeed. But Bumblebee simply tells him in his bleeping language that, nah, not today, bro. And blasts Blackout right in the face, ending him right then and there. However, Bumblebee hears something to the side and goes to walk towards it. But now we head over to the final battle, to the death. Skyquake versus Striker. Both of them are battered, bruised, and injured, with Skyquake simply standing there monologuing about how he trusted Striker, he trusted Megatron, and now he's trusting the enemy. Funny how that works, doesn't it? To a Striker says, trust? The Decepticon cause was built on power, not foolhardy ideals like trust. And then she tries to lunge at him, but this is where Skyquake parries her and does something his brother would do and places a bomb on her back. And he simply states, if there's one thing I've learned from my Autobot compatriots, it's that always being smooth is one vital part of pretty much winning a fight. To which Striker says, you really going to give me a lesson about Autobots? And this is where Skyquake simply utilizes his blaster and blasts her with everything she's got. Alright, just blasts her with everything. However, Striker's armor is tough enough to withstand most of the blast. However, he keeps pushing her into a certain area. And this is where Skyquake then runs at her and then begins to wail on her over and over and over again, with Striker trying to fight back, but Skyquake is just relentless. He's angry, he's hurt, and he's betrayed. His honor, his loyalty to Decepticon cause meant nothing. But this is where Striker realizes all too late that she's in front of an airlock. And then Skyquake kicks her out, telling her, just know that you died alone, while I stand victorious with my allies. And then presses a detonator, blowing her up. Back on the more, I guess you could say, outer area of the warship, the Dinobots have been pushed out by the Predacons towards the edge. And this is where they're all standing against their opponents, as you see here before you. And this is where they're all kind of like panting and stuff, as again, the Predacons are still a bit more experience than the Dinobots. But this is where Slash simply states, you know what, guys? Let's use it here and now. And they each take out canisters, to which Skystalker mocks them, simply stating, if you guys could barely beat us on your own, what makes you think these canisters are going to work? And to which Laserback laughs and says, haha, yeah, come on now. Just make your deaths all the more simpler. We don't have to get it messy. We can just make it quick and simple. However, this is where Scorn simply states, on this day, for our brother Goryu, for our brother Jetfire, we will terminate all Decepticons and Predacons alike. And this is where they each drink or at least inject themselves with a vial of red Energon. Keep in mind, the Autobots still got a hold of this, and Ratchet has been able to perfect it at this point. So they're able to use their dosage. And well, when it comes to speed inducing Energon, giving that to the Dinobots or any beast transformer, how badly do you think this is going to go now? Yeah, I'm not gonna drag it out at all. Oh, the Predacons. Scorn tears Skystalker to ribbons, while Slash dices up Grimwing into tiny pieces. However, Strafe actually gets a little petty with Ripclaw. And this is where she runs at her full speed, jumps in the air. Keep in mind, this is in fast motion too. Transforms into her Shonisaurus form, and then simply comes down like a whole Snorlax and just crushes her beneath her. Just absolutely devious kind of work with her weight. However, Paddles is the more strategic one, actually maneuvering around his opponent and, well, actually begins hacking their systems towards their spark, causing them to overload in the real time. To which Paddles is like, we could actually get used to this, I mean, being fast and being dangerous just seems to go hand in hand now, doesn't it? However, one change here. Breakdown versus Bulkhead. They're fighting back and forth, slugging each other out. And this is where Bulkhead is like, Breakdown, I'm done. To which he puts away his wrecking ball, and Breakdown's like, wait, what? What do you mean you're done? Fight me. This is what we do. This is what we always done. To which, this is where Bulkhead simply states, is this all you want to do? All this fighting? Autobots and Decepticons. Come on now. You know the cons are on the losing side. Think about it. Who came for you when you know good and well the cons didn't? To which Breakdown is like, you and the Autobots? Exactly. We've always been fighting and fighting. But think about the time I saved you. Think about the time me and Prime saved you, okay? Think about it. Do you really want to be working for people that don't care about you? To which Breakdown's like, heck nah, I don't want that after all. And so, this is where Breakdown and Bulkhead shake hands. And this is where Bumblebee actually walks in with Knockout at the time. And well, this is where the Dinobots also kind of regroup with them. And Wheeljack simply stating that, yeah, took care of Cyclonus, Wrecker style, kind of fist bumping Bulkhead. And this is where Knockout simply looks at his partners like, so we're Autobots now. Are we really going to be welcome? Maybe pardoned for their crimes? However, this is where Skyquake simply interjects. Remember, I used to work for Megatron as well, and I was abandoned for him. The Autobots did not look at my crimes. They saw me as a victim of war, the same as anybody else. And this is where we pan over to somewhere else. And it's on top of a rock, overlooking one battle. And this is where Soundwave and Starscream are. Both of them have fled, retreating from the warship itself. And this is where Starscream is like, dang it. Our only hope is that Megatron wins this. And then maybe we can reclaim some of the relics and then beat those accursed Autobots. But right now, we need to think of something, Soundwave. What is our backup plan? What is our next objective? Everyone we know is either dead or likely betrayed. However, this is where we pan over to the fight, where we see Megatron in his dragon form and Jazz in his Leviathan form. Both of them clashing fiercely, tooth and claw, tail for tail, wing for wing, and then coil for claw, or coil for grab. And this is where RC and Cliffjumper are looking like, come on, just need the signal for him, we can do this. And so RC's like, come on, please, you can still win this. You know, only bet we have at beating this Megatron. And so this is where Jazz actually does something slick. He flies up mid-air and transforms and comes down at Megatron. And he simply states, come on, Dragon Breath, see what you got. And so this is where Megatron simply taken back a little bit, but he goes for it anyway, flying at him full speed, exactly what Jazz wants. And he says, I'm going to devour your spark. However, Jazz makes sure that he has a Star Saber firm, glows it with its energy. And he tells Megatron, nah, not today. Maneuvers out of the way and slices Megatron's wing clean off. And Jazz notes he could have aimed for the head pretty easily. And there's no other way about it. He could have killed him right then and there. However, he ain't gonna do that. Nah. He's not gonna kill Megatron. He's not gonna be like him. And this is where Jazz simply utilizes the next energy wave to even soften Megatron's blow. Or at least, well, you know, kind of soften it. This is gonna hurt. But Megatron does go bouncing and then plummets to the ground. To which Jazz simply states, I'm tired of killing. Tired of all this back and forth destruction and death. Open fire. To which Cliffjumper simply runs out and blasts at Megatron, causing him to turn and, well, get his attention. But before Megatron can even utilize anything, his fusion cannon, his fire, this is where Cliffjumper pulls out the immobilizer and blasts him with it, just straight up immobilizing Megatron right then and there. And he simply states, and Jazz simply states, Megatron, always so proud, always so powerful, but never the intelligent one. And this is where he reaches onto Megatron's chest and pulls the Allspark fragment out, kind of separating both of the Megatrons, leaving his Bayverse one tattered and just, well, I guess you say remained on the floor, while Megatron is there, still immobilized. Both of them are immobilized. And RC is like, wow, this is pretty hefty. And she even sees the remains of Predacons as well. However, Jazz walks over to his and simply states, man, if only my Prime was here to see this. And blasts his Megatron right through the spark, killing him. To which RC's like, well, that's definitely one for your books, huh? Being able to kill your own Megatron, which you couldn't. However, RC then puts on the Apex armor and walks over towards her Megatron. And she just starts beating on him for a good minute. Keep in mind, he's immobilized, so this damage is going to be permanent. The reason why I'm having this happen is because, well, this Megatron deserves all the pain possible. Both of them do. But Jazz killing his is his moment. But this Megatron right here, still their verse, still their Megatron. And while, yes, he is the prime of this world, he still wants to give them their due deserts. But after beating up that Megatron for a good minute, this is where RC notes that, so, we won. To which Jazz says, yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah, we really won. We won the war, so what now? However, this is where the Decepticon warship pulls up, and this is where Team Skyquake pretty much exits. And now Jazz is actually happy to see that Breakdown and Knockout have joined the team. And they say they'll do anything to make sure their cause, or that the, Autobot cause, is just, and that they'll earn their redemption. To which Jazz simply states, all right, well, all we really got to do now is just get your little restoration chamber or restoration beam over there back to Cybertron. To which Skyquake simply states they did not find Soundwave or Starscream on the bridge, and the Viacons on the ship have simply surrendered, so they've been rounded up already. And this is where Breakdown simply states it's very possible that they are still on this planet, probably looking for something at this point. However, they really shouldn't be too much of a threat. He doesn't think that there are any armies here. And to which Jazz is like, okay. Yeah, I could definitely see that happening. But just in case that they are here, we definitely could leave some Autobots behind. Besides, what would stop us? We could always come back. To which the team that actually goes to Cybertron are Breakdown, Knockout, Wheeljack, RC, Cliffjumper, and Jazz Prime. And this is where they each say goodbye to their human compatriots. Well, at least RC says she'll see Jack pretty soon, and Jazz tells Sierra that she was the best human companion he could ever ask for. And don't worry, he'll definitely be back to take her and Jack on more romantic drives. To which they both kind of laugh and blush at this, but Jazz is right. They can come back anytime, and he'll be sure to establish better connections between the Autobots and this Earth. He wonders how his Earth is doing as well, but maybe that'll be for another time. But so, this team takes the warship, and they all head back to Cybertron. But before they go, this is where Ratchet actually wants to talk to Jazz for a minute. And he tells him, when you first came here, I was skeptical of you. And now, look at you, a Prime. To which Jazz simply laughs and is like, yeah, I know, when he came in, he was all busted up and everything, from his Megatron's own fusion cannon, or at least the Allspark. Yeah, who knows. But Ratchet simply states something very obvious. You changed a lot. You went from being this jovial warrior to a Prime. And even then, you're still figuring yourself out, becoming more and more powerful as you went on. And this is where Ratchet simply, or Jazz simply states here that, back in my dimension, you were one of my greatest friends. In here, I think I kind of understand why you're important, or how you're important. To which they both shake hands with each other, and Jazz even pulls Ratchet in for a bro hug. To which Ratchet is taken aback by this, but they have to go. And so they make their way to the Well of Allsparks, where Jazz simply watches as the planet is revived. However, this is where Jazz takes his own fragment of the Allspark and simply flies down in his Leviathan form and pretty much just throws it into Primus, causing the same thing to happen just like in the original. To which Wheeljack is like, man, new sparks and a new start for Cybertron. Hopefully it's way better than what originally happened. To which RC's like, yeah, to think we could actually find peace. And, well, maybe even have a better start or across the entire universe now. And to which this is where Jazz simply states and gives his own message. That right now, he's the current Prime of apparently this universe. And that if any Autobot and Decepticon want to join this new reign of Cybertron, to come here. Come and help us rebuild. Come and help us unite our planet. And maybe even the universe. However, off in the distance, they're being watched by two Predacons, Skylynx and Darksteel. And they're both looking at each other. Do we tell him? Of course we have to tell him. He should know this. But what if he doesn't know this? Well, obviously it'll mean we have to tell him, you fool. To which a voice says, now, I'm very well aware of what this is, you two. And it pans over to Sentinel Prime. And he says, so, Jazz, you're the Prime now. A naive fool thinks he's going to take this planet from me. And that's where we're going to leave it off here, you guys.